What happens to you when you engage the storms of your life? How do you approach that storm? Do you have the courage to face it? Do you have the fear to back off? How do you do it? Do you have the discipline? Do you have the ability to calming yourself down? All these things. Because ultimately, when that storm of life comes at you, that challenging moment, what you're really looking at, your response to it, is something that's habitual. Your brain actually set out and built a pattern for you to trigger to when you hit that kind of storm. And it becomes a life pattern. That's the deal. And we would not even see it. We would not see that it was there in operation because it's so calm, it's so ubiquitous. You just see through air and you don't see the pattern shaping you, guiding you about how you're going to respond to that storm. Okay? Let me give you an example. A client of mine grew up in a Chinese family, and it just so happens that in that culture, friends would come over, relatives would come over, and on a red day, they would give the kid an envelope full of money. And then the kid, my client, would give it to the parents for safekeeping, that he would want to get it one time. He was really into being able to save and stuff like that. And it went on for a number of years. And then one day, about the time he was 19 years old, he decided it was time to get that money. He needed a car and stuff like that. And then they said, well, I'm sorry, it's not here. It's gone. We used it to pay mortgages and rents and stuff like that. And the only thing you can do about it is work harder. Okay? Now, that structure of how parents are and families are within a Chinese culture is something very strong. You know, it's not, the kid did not really have permission to confront his mom and dad. That just would have never have worked out. So he grows up and he learns a lesson. He doesn't realize he's learning this lesson, that you have to be careful about who you trust. You can give them stuff, and at some moment, they're going to take it from you. And they're not going to apologize, and the only thing that you can do is work harder to get it over. Now, he's done that. He's actually got a very successful business that he runs, and he has other things that he does, but what he does is, says, Randy, what I really end up doing is I will always get myself in a situation where I extend myself, and all of a sudden I find that the people that I trusted, they weren't trustworthy, and before I know it, that money's gone, and I can only work harder to get it. And if you take a look at his life, that's what he's done. He's worked hard, okay? And every time he built that stuff up, something would happen, some bad luck would happen, it would be gone, and he had to work harder. Do you see the pattern? Do you see the pattern? He just thought this was his life. It was quite an event for him to realize that, no, this is an adaptive brain creating a life pattern for you to live in, because at one time that allowed him to survive in this system, in this environment that he was in. That was just the way it was in that particular family system. He grows up, but now he's projecting that onto all sorts of stuff in his life. This is the emotional pattern. And remember, the big deal is this, is your brain's job is to create pattern, emotional pattern, that allows you to be able to survive short term in an environment. It's not thinking about the years to come, it's thinking about right now. That's what that very primitive brain was built to do. And what I'm asking you to do is to begin to take a look at what happens to you in particular places. What are the patterns that keep repeating, that you've really never examined? Okay? For me, it was a situation about money where I grew up in a family that had lost wealth the generation before me, and we blamed another family for it. The truth is, my grandfather died, and his wife, my grandmother, inherited a fortune, and she didn't have any idea how to manage that and the stuff that required to do it. And eventually, she just got sucked dry, and the money disappeared. But my family always didn't blame us, they blamed somebody else. We stayed stuck in that. Now, how does that work for me? As an adult, what I would do is I was always in a situation of trying to get the money back. You know, whether or not it was a broken deal or whatever, I was still following that pattern of having lost money and having to go find and take that money back. It didn't even occur to me to create wealth. I was locked into a pattern that was building my life. And at the same time, you're going, oh God, it's building it not in particularly a healthy way, one that's for you. And this is what we want to look at. We want to take a look at the patterns that define you, that are creating you, because my friends, I want to tell you something. You don't have these patterns. These patterns, historical in nature, have you and are creating your destiny. This is how important they are, to be able to locate the ones that's hard to see. That just simply sit there and go, you know something? I don't see anything. I don't know why this keeps happening to me, but it keeps happening. Why does this happen to me? This guy took on the role kind of like a victim. He finally said, you know something? This is my lot in life. I'll make a lot of money. I'll be in really good business and stuff like that. But what I know is that this is kind of my lot in life. These things kind of happen. I can get close to the edge, but I go over it and it sabotages, and then I have to work even harder. Now, the key is, what's your pattern? And ultimately, understand this. The emotion is the king here. If you were to look at emotion as a powerful locomotive, okay? Strong, can just bust through anything. Now, the engineer driving that locomotive are the beliefs, okay, that you hold about your ability to create life and to move forward in life, how you meet the challenges, meet the storms of life. The thinking brain is the little caboose at the end of the train. Highly overrated, okay? Believe me, the deal is this: as your thinking brain serves your emotional brain, and unless you can get that, what happens is you can't see it, because the pattern is so thick around you that you have to wake up and see beyond it first. And that's what a lot of this work is about. That's what in chapter 2 of this book that this is a part of, that's really what's happening. You're looking there and saying, okay, how do I go about beginning to see and to recognize how this works? Because that locomotive, it's strong. If something gets in its way, it's going to blow it up, unless you learn how to deconstruct it and to go in and start finding at the very bottom of that emotion are the beliefs that you hold about your ability to be able to engage the storms of life and come out well. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. And at the bottom of that belief, this guy that I was telling you about, he didn't know they were there. It was only in an act of discovery, when we started really examining the stuckness of these patterns, did he notice it. Now, to a lot of people, he would be considered very, very successful. He has a thriving business. He can do a lot of things. They live well, all that. But he also knows that he's at a threshold moment, that he can move beyond that if he finds out what's the beliefs that's holding him back from what he could be. And what we really want to do here is to say, well, what are the beliefs that hold you back? Because at the bottom of that deep pattern that keeps happening and keeps moving through your life is a belief, okay, that led this guy that I was talking about to view himself as a victim. Others may view themselves as a conquering hero, all sorts of things, but the thing, they get locked into a pattern that limits them as a possibility. Their potential shrinks. And now what we're saying is spot it, because ultimately you can change that. You can actually start, when you apply the power of compassion to that particular pattern, remember, it's there because it was successful. Compassion is the only emotional state that can take a network and to be able to tease it apart and rebuild that neural network into higher functioning. At the same time, to do that, you're going to have courage, because you're going to go outside of your comfort zone. To do that, you're going to have to be disciplined to maintain order, because you're not going to necessarily want to do the work of getting in and finding the emotional pattern, and then you have to do the heavy lifting of changing it. Okay? This is why it's so much easier just to feel like you can just do some energy work and everything's great. The belief and the pattern remain. And they come back to rewrite that pattern and have it establish itself all over again, and there you are. That's why smoking cessation programs really work based on hypnosis, is that you finally work through the pattern takes hold again, and there you are. Same thing with eating and diets. What we're doing, though, is saying we want to dig down and find out what the solution was, so that you, for the first time, see that the brain has created a solution, not because it was the right one or the best one, because it found the solution, it locked it in. And once it got locked in, the pattern locked in, and it started creating your life. Now we're saying, find the pattern, look for it as we move through this book, as we move through your life. And to say, I know that I'm going to have the compassion. That's the key element. I know that I'm going to have the courage to do the heavy lifting. I know that I'm going to have the discipline to maintain order of myself, so I'll do what's best for me in the long-term interests. Okay? To do that, though, you're also going to have clarity of thought. Okay? You're going to have a sage-like quality of being able to see beyond the short term and begin to say, this is what I would like it to look like in the long term. This would produce thriving. This would produce the breakthrough from survival into thriving. Friends, read more. Take a look at more of the videos. Read the book and really think about, how can I become captain of own destiny? Because that's really what we're talking about, is that you can wake up that part of yourself and you can become the captain of your own destiny. Friends, I welcome you on this journey.